The London skyline, always developing, but leaving behind its traces of history, from the Tower of London and Tower Bridge to remnants of the Great Fire of London. London gives you everything. And in this video, we are going to be looking at some of the things left behind from London's history to give you some of the clues of where things actually happened in this great city. So join us as we look at the Shard and we go back in history. And we start with this, evidence of the tram subway. As this fantastic red name plaque shows, this is the Kingsway tram subway and the dates that it was here. Now, what happened was the Kingsway train subway is a cut and cover Grade 2 listed tunnel right here in central London, and it was built by the London County Council and the only one of its kind in Britain. The decision in 1898 to clear slum districts in the Holbern area, which this is in, provided an opportunity to use the new streets for a tramway connecting the lines in the north and the south. Following the pattern of tramways in both New York and Boston, it was decided to build this as an underground connection, and this is the only part of it that is left. Now, this tramway actually ran north towards Highbury and Islington and south towards Aldwych, with connections to Kensington Gate to Tower Bridge and right down by the River Thames, so it ran right down that way. And as I said, this is the only piece of it left. Now, you can do tours in here through London Underground historic museums, and if you look on there, you can see what tickets are available. But I can tell you this now, it's very expensive to go down there and see what is left behind. I love that you can see the tracks, but right in the middle there, that sort of line which you can see right between the two tracks, that's where the power came through to power off the trams. Okay, that's the first one of our three. And now, let's go something that commemorates the Great Fire of London. And we're by St Bartholomew's Hospital. And this is the Golden Boy of Pye Corner. So this Golden Boy here marks the limits of the Great Fire of London. The Golden Boy was erected to put an end to the conflicting theories surrounding the cause of the Great Fire. At first, the fire was actually blamed on a deranged French silversmith called Robert Herbert after he made a confession. He was promptly executed, but it was later discovered that he had arrived in the country 2 days after the fire had started. William Lilly, a famous astrologer who predicted a fire the year before, almost went to the scaffold with the unfortunate Herbert, but talked his way out of it in front of a special committee at the House of Commons. The Catholics were the next to get the rap. Eventually, the city elders decided to blame the fire on the sin of gluttony. To make their point, they inscribed the pudgy effigy thus: "The Boy at Pye Corner was erected to commemorate the staying of the Great Fire, which, beginning at Pudding Lane, was ascribed to the sin of gluttony, when not attributed to the Papists as on the monument, and the boy was made prodigiously fat to enforce the moral." The site of the Golden Boy used to be the home of the Fortunes of War, a pub favoured by the Resurrection men who sold corpses to the autonomists at St Bartholomew's Hospital just over the road. The corpses, fresh from the road, the river, or occasionally the grave, were exhibited in an upstairs room by the landlord, labelled with the finder's name. Our third and final place in this video is St Stephen's Church and the lost Walbrook River. Now, we're going to go right back to Roman history and the beginning of London. And here we're looking at Walbrook, which is the first river around which London was built, laying between the early settlements on Cornhill and Ludgate Hill. It was also the centre of Celtic and also Roman life, probably so called because it ran through the London Wall, which was at the time a defensive rampart built by the Romans, but more on that a little bit later. We're going to go inside the church to start with, and we're going to look at some of the amazing architecture inside the church, which was designed by one Sir Christopher Wren, who built many churches in the city of London. Now, St Stephen is one of the hardest to find, as it really is tucked away behind all of the modern buildings, and it's getting even more so as the city strives to compete with Canary Wharf as a commercial centre. This is a perfect little church dwarfed by its neighbours, and it stands on the edge of Walbrook. Now, it's a lovely little church, but the only problem with it is, the only threat to the internal harmony is this altar, which is a huge circular slab of marble designed by Henry Moore, which sits in the centre of the church. The monumental altar, which is cut from the same Tavatine marble as used by Michelangelo, does look, well, out of place at first, to say the least, but its bold statement makes sense for a church designed by Wren, who wasn't afraid to be controversial and also experimental. Now, let's look at that dome. Now, this was Wren's own church as he lived on 15 Walbrook, and the church is almost anonymous from the outside, but once inside, this is absolutely incredible. Now, what he did was Wren created a light-filled cube with 16 Corinthian columns supporting a Roman dome, which was the prototype for St Paul's Cathedral in a very limited space. So you really are looking at history, bringing history in, and the building of St Paul's Cathedral afterwards as a result of this. Thankfully, the church managed to escape most of the damage from the Blitz, and therefore nearly all of it is original, and this is an absolute masterpiece. And if you're looking to find a church in London which really does take you back to, well, St Paul's Cathedral and pre-St Paul's Cathedral, this is probably the one. Now, the Walbrook, which is a river which literally ran in the street, parallel to, well, it would have been underneath where the street is right there, which has its own history, because more than 100 stelae have been found in the Walbrook, suggesting that Roman clerks simply threw their used pens into the stream. Now, more anonymously, at the end of the 19th century, large numbers of skulls were found in the river, and many of these gruesome remnants are still being dredged up today. The victims, they reckon, might have been Roman prisoners ritually decapitated after the sacking of London by Boadicea, but no one really knows. But what we do know is a river, which was the centre of London, really did flow underneath where this road is now. We are bang in the centre of London, and it's Roman history, and this is where London was built. There you go, and you can see the top of the dome there at St Stephens. So if you get a chance to get into the City of London, this is certainly a place you want to come and seek out. So what did you think about our 3 pieces of history, really going back to the beginning of London, and also a little bit more modern as well with the tramway? Anyway, have you seen any of these before, and have you visited any of them? Do let us know in the comments down below, and I really hope you enjoy these videos because we've got more to come of other little trinkets of history in London as well. And I'm going to leave you with another up in the top right hand corner. See you in there.